All right, good evening, everybody. This is Ismortah, and this is my Wednesday 7 p.m. PST ELEMANCERS live stream. This evening, I'll be showing you the pretties for the alpha build that I had completed beginning of this year. Currently working on the beta build, but I want to show you the currently available testable build. And what's happening then with the beta is I'm just adding on to it, updating components so that players can get the beta experience when it's ready. So I'll let you guys take a look at the board. Let me just check the audio one sec. Bear with me. See if that's going to work. All right, still checking to confirm the audio. Great, we're good to go. All right, so this is ELEMANCERS. ELEMANCERS, again, is a strategy-based fantasy board game for 2 to 6 players that is largely an area control game, but also incorporates resource management, dice card combat, set collection, ancient lore, legendary weapons, a bunch of other cool stuff. So for this stream, I'm not going to be going into the story of ELEMANCERS or the gameplay, or really even what I'm going to be working on for the beta build coming up next in the next few weeks. I want to dedicate this stream to just showing you the components. What am I currently using for the alpha build? What do I have plans for the beta build in terms of components, and possibly what other component ideas I have as well. So let's jump into it. So as you can see, what I have is a player board as well as a game board and 6 player boards. And that takes the enormity of the space. I do have a star map that you see in the background, but that's just to make it look cool and have really cool play space. But it is an interesting thing to possibly consider for a stretch goal or an add-on for sure. So for the player board, what I wanted to, I keep calling it player board. For the game board, what I wanted to have is a one-stop shop for all of what you're doing for the actual gameplay that the community of players need to see, as well as have all of the cards and resources that the community of players uses. Whereas the player boards, that's more just information that only the player needs to associate with. But I did also want to have defined spaces on the player boards. That way your teammates or enemy players know what you have at all times, because the same allocation of space and where things go consistently with all the player boards. So, hey, I was talking about teams. That is correct. So it's 2 to 6 players, but it's a team-based game. As you can see how I've set up, that's one side of the game board versus the other side, which is the light faction versus the dark faction. The light faction being called Lux, and the dark faction Tenebrae. On the dark faction, there are 3 clans. We have Mortis, Umbra, and Cryo. While on the light faction, we have Anima, Coelum, and Ignis. Now, each of these clans embody different elements of the world and focus on particular elements for that clan. Whereas all of the elements of a faction emphasize really the primal element of light or darkness. And I'll go more into that story and what are these elements, what are even Elemancers in a later stream. But that's what primarily the game's based on. It's the light and dark faction warring each other. So let me go into what are all these components. And I'll start with the game board. There you go, I said it correctly this time. So one of the strategies that I want to have for this game board is to have it be really eye-popping and catch your attention with color as well as 3D space, while at the same time having it easy to find information. For example, I don't know if I'm going to stick with a pure white board, but the fact that it's white and you have all this busy color and objects makes it easier to identify because you have a neutral background. On the corners of the game spaces, I wanted to have large objects or spaces that go vertically. That way it draws your attention and helps define the edges of the game space and adds interest. So on this corner, we have dark faction, creatures, and resources. And whereas this corner, you have the light faction. The other corner, we have neutral, which is the dragon and associated cards. And this corner, we have community decks and cards that all of the players in different factions use. For the play space on the game board, I also want it to be something that I haven't seen before. Yes, we've all seen Hexagon Tiles. The reason why so many games use them is because it just works very well. You don't necessarily need a six-sided something, but having multiple sides and a defined shape for the area just makes it easier to quickly identify different regions. Like, for example, if you see a game like Small World, that's a really fun area control game, but the fact that different spaces look a little different and different shapes, it makes it a little hard to identify. But what it does well is the same type of area always looks very similar, so you can identify it that way. But I wanted to have unique shapes, so that's why you see this snowflake setup. And the main game space is in the center, hexagons, whereas the outer spokes on the snowflake are the starting locations for each clan. Similar, I wanted to have not only tokens to represent creatures that I use in the game on the game board, but also creatures that have a different shape to them. That way they also pop. And that's why for the creature tokens, which are these round tokens you see, for example, on the light faction, they're going to be round tokens with an icon on one side and a face on the other side. So when a creature is called face up, it's the side that has the face. This way you can easily move around creatures on the board just like poker chips, and sort of like you're placing bets in different areas. You're not placing bets, but that's what it feels like as far as the ease of use moving stuff around the board. Whereas your avatars, which is your most powerful creature that you control, for example here, Gorak, Snahavium, and Citronedusa, we want to make sure that those pop because those are very important creatures for your clan and do particular things in the game. And that's why those are represented by standees, as you see here. So I have exactly the same picture, but on a standee. Now, for the locations that you control, I want to have some unique piece as well. I didn't want to have it be a token because we're already using tokens, and I want to look and feel different so it's quickly easy to identify. That's because you have 6 players that are putting that stuff on the board. And I didn't want to standees because I wanted that to represent the avatars, the most powerful units in the game. So what I'm doing instead is miniatures. So this is definitely a placeholder miniature that you see here, but this is the idea. So it's going to be a miniature that's actually a little bit larger than this, but a little bit smaller than this guy. So that takes up a sizable amount, most likely just a little bit larger than the standees base. This way, again, you can just quickly identify, oh, that's a creature, that's an avatar, and that's a citadel. Now, I do have all of the miniatures for the game sculpted. I just need to get them 3D printed. So the miniatures that you see here in the corners, as well as on starting location spokes, those are placeholder. But I do have them ready, and that's one of the things that I definitely want to include in the beta build to get the look and feel of the miniatures in the game. So what else do we have here? Here, what I have in each pocket between the spokes is the resources for each individual clan. So these are resources that you would pull from to acquire more power, whereas what you're capable of doing, for example, looking at the Anima clan, what you can do is on your player board, but things that you can still acquire would be on the game board. And here you would have your extra creature tokens, more creatures that identify these creature tokens, the citadels, and your battle cards. And you see that same theme going around the different spokes. Now, addition on the game board, you may notice a bunch of other dice, tokens, and cards. So, for example, here we see the Dark faction. Here you have dice. Let's see, you have 8-sided dice, a 6-sided die, and a couple wooden cubes, and some cards. So all of the dice represent the abilities of the primal dark god here, Leximog. The tokens represent the primal element of darkness, if that's used in the game. And these are cards that represent a different legendary weapon that's on the Dark faction. And it's similar theme over here with Umezoa and what's available to her. In this corner, we have the Saga Cards, which you see it's a familiar back from TI3. But again, it's placeholder, as the UI pass is one of the major things that's going on during the beta build, the beta phase. Saga Cards will be those secret objectives that each player has, and you can work with your team, but they're not available to share with your opponent. They're trying to complete in order to reveal ancient lore, which then unlocks legendary weapons, which give you a significant power boost in the game. And then here's an example of another legendary weapon unlocking the Progenitor Dragons. Here you see the Derlight from the Light faction and the Darkon from the Dark faction. And as I'll explain in a future stream, as far as lore, there's a reason why I have them called Derlights and Darkon. And you'll notice that if you take out the words light and dark and combine the words, it describes a particular creature that you're probably very familiar with. Here we have event cards. This will most likely be included as far as an expansion for the game, but it adds an event system to the game so that on every round there's additional something else going on in the game that you guys can compete for and story attached to it as well. Lastly, in this corner, we have the dragon, which I'm sure, as you are well aware, this is a Manicore. Again, just a placeholder. But here's the dragon here, Bronzu, as well as her dice and an AI die. So what's very cool about the dragon is it has an AI attached to it as far as what it does and when it does it. Some is based on if statements, and others are based on chance of the die roll during Bronze's turn. So what else do we have going on as far as the player boards? Definitely what I wanted to have for each player board is have it be similar but feel unique to each clan. And so there will be a player board that identifies just where you place all of your stuff so they can keep it organized. Players can easily look at each other's stuff, as well as really bring out the cool artwork and have it in a display that makes sense. So here we have the different creatures that you have unlocked, the associated creature tokens with that creature, representing the trait that that creature has, your avatar, where you're at currently in your lore set. This, for example, illustrating the legendary weapon with that set. Your power tokens, which represents the power and your ability to do stuff during each turn. Different types of actions take different amounts of power. As well as each clan also has dice, and this is your battle dice. That's unique to you, so you're rolling those dice for that particular clan. And you see a similar theme as you go across. Different icons for the creature traits and different creatures. And you may notice there are some creatures, like for example, you see the Blight Worm that the Cryo clan has, as well as Mortis. And that's because some of the creatures in this world are made up of multiple elements, and depending on what clan you are, you're emphasizing one trait of that creature or another. In this case, emphasizing the Nimble trait, where this clan is emphasizing the Banisher trait. And you'll see a similar theme for the Light faction, as far as some clans sharing creatures, as well as each clan also sharing traits. And that's one of the themes, is every clan, creature-wise, can do the same stuff. But depending on when you draw it, it will be available at different times, or maybe not at all. And you have different flavor based on how does the creature for that clan using that trait. But every clan has every trait except for one. The trait that you don't have available as a creature is available to unlock just instinctively as your clan. For example, the Ignis clan, as a clan ability, you can activate Annihilator, which gives you a bonus to attack in battle. Every clan has a creature that could utilize that, but as a clan, Ignis can use that ability at will by using power. So that's a way to not only have balance in the game, how I'm doing this, but also add to the flavor of, oh, I'm being fired, so it's like, very destructive and in your face. Whereas the converse, the Cryo clan, you have the Bulwark trait, and it's very defensive, help defend your creatures from these onslaughts. So I believe that is all of the components in a nutshell. Now, again, the miniatures are placeholder, but the sculpts are ready. Just need a 3D print. And during the beta phase is where I'm going to be adding the UI treatments. So adding background plates, the final look for the text, flavor text, including story and descriptive text for the battle cards, bordering for the cards. Basically, the UI elements that just needs to be laced into the game. I already have the illustrations done, barring a polish pass to potentially tweak a couple things. Same with the location tiles, but otherwise good to go. And again, there are also plans to add bonus materials to the game just to make it pop and be even more engaging. And these are things that are being the deluxe version of the game. And I look forward to sharing more of that information for the deluxe edition when I get further along in the beta. Well, that's it for a nutshell. Again, this is just an overview of all the pretties and the components and what you currently expect in the game. For the Elemancer stream next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. PST, it will be an update on what currently I'm working on for the beta build and what to expect in the coming weeks. There's a lot to do for the beta pass, but I've prioritized on what sort of things I want to do first and how far along I am on each of those activities. The next stream will be Friday, 7 p.m. PST, and that's going to be some Sea of Thieves action. There may potentially be also a morning stream and or actually moving that stream to the morning going forward, and I'll let you know on Twitter for at Shadow Balance. But most likely I'm entertaining the card game and video game streams potentially moving to the mornings, whereas the board game and Elemental streams have it in the evenings. But I will definitely share the information on Twitter as we get closer to Friday. But regardless, Friday will be some Sea of Thieves action because there's some great additions that they add to the game beginning of May. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Again, this is Ismortah, and this is Elemancer's. Hope you like what you see. More pretties to come and more updates on what I'm doing, as well as gameplay in future streams. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.